What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Oh, actually, hold on. Can I do it, Ira? Wake up! It's an edition of Wake Up Warchant with a Showtime appearance by none other than Ira Schoffel. It's kind of like the DC and Marvel universes, Ira, have kind of come together, or like WWE and WCW are on the same card, something like that, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Those are kind of rivals. I think we're friends. It's like when Cheers and Friends do like some sort of crossover or something. Well, I guess different eras, but maybe the Cosby Show and Cheers or something. We're the same network, we're the same family.
Yeah,
we're just merging. We're doing a little crossover.
Yeah, it'd be like Uncle Jesse showing up on Family Matters to hang out with Uncle Carl.
There you go.
Right, there you go. So, Wake Up Warchant presented to you by Zaxby's, indescribably good. We'll have a really cool giveaway to do this week when we do our over-under, so do stay tuned to that. Do check out our friends over at Zaxby's. This will also be adapted into a full-time version of a Showtime with Ira Schoffel. It'll be a visual program, if you will. Video will be going up on warchant.com. If you're not a member of warchant.com, use the promo code WARCHANT30. It gets you 30 free days of access to the ultimate Seminole sports source. Ira filling in for Corey Clark, who is watching his beloved Atlanta Braves get absolutely bludgeoned by the Redbirds. Man alive, Ira, what's going on? Atlanta's just doomed, huh? So Corey's not lying when he's all cynical about being a sports fan.
It might be his negative energy.
Okay.
Or the collective negative energy of Atlanta sports fans. But, when in fairness, when we're recording this, they're only down 13-1, I believe. So, we could finish this, and they may have mounted the big comeback and advanced to the next round.
Yeah, one can hope. One can hope here. And with that said, let's go to warchant.com, where we get our questions for the Renegade Express, brought to you by First Commerce Financial. And lots of questions about Clemson, I'm sure. So let's begin with GSL 7532. He asks Ira, good morning, fellas. Do you guys think that we actually have a chance against Clemson, and who should be the starting quarterback? Also, how do you feel about the play of Asante and Stanford? Start us off there, Ira. What do you think about those queries?
I hate this whole week, to be honest with you. I've hated every part of this week. I hate interviewing the players and acting like they're about to go play the New York Giants, or from some Super Bowl year or something. I hate talking about this game everywhere in town. The only thing people have asked me is, can we cover? Like, nobody's even asking, like, can they win? They're just, hey, do you think we can cover? Do you think we can keep it within 25 points? So it just stinks writing about this game or talking about this game, because it feels like, a foregone conclusion. I don't see a scenario where Florida State's going to win the game. I wouldn't predict that they're going to win the game. I do think that they're going to be competitive. And that, to me, that's the big difference from this year to last year. Is Florida State in a position right now to beat Clemson? I don't think so, but especially not up there. But are they at a place now where they can at least compete? And I think that would be a big jump from last year, right?
Yeah, that's the kind of the weird thing, though. Like it's a moral victory game. I'm not a moral victory kind of guy, but if they walk out of there, having lost 45-28, I guess you do have to feel better about it. But then, how good do you ultimately then feel? You still know that you're 3 scores worse than the team that you're chasing. And I don't know how. I guess maybe you think, oh, we lost by 49. We made up 20 points in 1 year. Maybe by next year, they come down to Tallahassee, and then you can overtake them. But it is a really tricky sort of matchup to talk about, because this season, and I think somebody asked a question later, but I don't know, you've been listening to how many of the shows that Corey and I do, Ira, but it's just like the season to me is a throwaway. They'll get better. They'll be a better team at the end of this season than they were at the beginning of this year, and certainly what they were last year. But I just don't know how much that means to what the ceiling is and what this coaching staff, namely Willie Taggart, really can accomplish. But yeah, you go play the defending national champs and you hang 3-4 touchdowns on them in Death Valley and keep it somewhat competitive. That's something to feel good about. And I guess when you're at this level of this program right now, you need things to feel good about, right?
Yeah, and I don't know that I would say it's a throwaway, just because you could be laying some foundation for the future. You could be getting guys experience, getting guys to develop. I think you're seeing some players that are playing at a higher level than probably we would have expected. Not a ton across the board, but you look at the Keyshawn Heltons and some of these young receivers, Trayshawn Harrison, and you look at some of the talent they have at the skill positions, and also defensively. I think you got some young guys that you have some hope for. Again, the Asante Samuel he mentioned in the question is a sophomore. He's a young defensive back. He's playing at a pretty high level. You look at the young defensive players. Brendan Gant, I think, is a guy that you have a lot of excitement for. Akeem Dent's coming along. So, I mean, I think this year would be best case scenario is kind of laying the foundation, get back to maybe make a bowl game, and and then kind of go to. It's not what anybody wants, but I mean, it's the reality of the situation. You're not going to go from where they were to competing for championships. Now, again, I hate talking about this game like they have no chance because I think they do have a chance. I think they can compete with Clemson. It's just so many things would have to go their way, which can happen. I mean, it can happen. Syracuse beat Clemson a couple years ago, and nobody would have said Syracuse was a better football team. NC State almost beat Clemson. It's not like they can't lose. It's just hard to predict how they would.
I mean, it would have to be like a clean game, less than 3 penalties. Clemson would have to commit a bunch. A turnover margin, you probably have to win by 3. Special teams play has to go in your favor. I mean, those things can happen, but can the confluence of them all come together? Really tricky. I'm sure we'll be asked about that later on. As for Asante and Stanford Sam was the third, you kind of touched upon it. Maybe we put too big of expectations on those guys. I felt, especially Stanford in a money year, I thought that he'd be like lockdown guy. We would never hear his name called out in a game because no one would dare throw in his direction. But they've been throwing at him and having some success. So, again, I don't know how much of this is maybe the back end not being comfortable with what Harlan wants to do. They're trying to run a mix of zone and man, which every team does. No team just runs exclusively man or zone, not in football. But ultimately, you'd figure that maybe one of those guys would have been having maybe a couple more turnovers, maybe a couple more game-changing plays, and neither really has delivered. But Asante, I still think, can be a great player for this program. He's got at least another season here. But Stanford's only got 6-7 games left, and has yet to really make a big impact, right?
He's only a junior, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, if he stays for a senior year,
yeah.
Again, I think that they're. This weekend's a huge opportunity for them, and they understand that. We talked to them earlier this week, and they're going up against big time wide receivers. Trevor Lawrence. This is the big stage. They'll be on national television. This is an opportunity for them to kind of rewrite their history a little bit. Whether or not they can do it, we'll have to see. But they're talented guys. I mean, I think Dabo's comment earlier in the week was pretty accurate when Dabo Swinney on Tuesday made the comment that, look, man, Florida State's been a higher rated recruiting class than us for these last several years. Now, the difference would be, the big issue is Florida State has not recruited the line of scrimmage the way Clemson has. I mean, I think at the skill positions and a lot of positions they have, but clearly they haven't recruited or developed players on the lines of scrimmage the way Clemson has, and that's why this game looks so lopsided. It's really all about the line of scrimmage.
Let's go to the next question here. Maybe deals a little bit with the line of scrimmage. Noli Moly asks, how do we contain Trevor Lawrence? What do you expect the Noles section to look like in North Carolina? I don't know why he says NC. It's in South Carolina. Maybe he's talking about Wake Forest next week. How would you game plan against 2 quarterbacks? Say Lawrence and his backup were splitting reps. I don't know. I mean, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ira, but I don't know how much really changes when Hornibrook and Blackman are in the game and in terms of what Florida State's running. I feel like Kendall's going to call what he wants to call, when he wants to call, whoever, no matter who's in the game, even though there's that sort of discrepancy in their arm ability, their arm talent. So I don't know really how much Clemson is going to. I mean, Clemson's whole thing is just going to be to get aligned and to know your assignment, because that's how Florida State's going to try to score points is to go into tempo, go fast, catch Clemson off guard. They just need to be good on their substitutions, stay aligned, and be on their assignments. And I think they'll probably win more one-on-one matchups than they'll lose. How would I contain Trevor Lawrence? I haven't seen him really be. He's been slowed down. He's thrown a lot more interceptions. I don't know. I'd blitz like crazy. I really would play. I'd go for broke. I would blitz like nonstop throughout the game. But that leaves you open to getting big plays, on the backside. But I don't know. I'd like to see them just pepper him with constant pressure. But that's just me.
Yeah, to me, that's the whole scenario. The only scenario I could see where Florida State really has a lot of success is if they just go all out, really try to pressure him into making some mistakes. And then your secondary makes some big plays, or maybe get a scoop and score or something like that. He has not looked great when he's on the run, throwing off the move. He had that one great pass against Texas A&M, but he's had a lot of other passes where he's not thrown well when he's under pressure. So, yeah, I think you've got to sell out and get after him. You can't sit back and let him have time. He'll just tear you apart. But like you said, it opens you up to some bigger things. As far as, defending two quarterbacks, yeah, usually 9 times out of 10 when you have a two quarterback system, the whole idea is you've got one guy who's mobile and one guy who's not, and maybe different packages. With these two guys, there's not. It's not like either one's a huge scrambling threat. There's no, really the only discernible difference I would think from a game plan standpoint is Hornibrook's left-handed, James is right-handed. Maybe you want to bring pressure from their blind side, possibly. That's about the only thing I can think of. I don't think they're going to do anything different depending on who's a quarterback. I guess you could make a case once you have more data, when you have a bigger sample size. I think other teams will have a better idea of who handles blitzes better, who handles, who reads defenses better, things like that. But I don't think you have enough of a sample. Alex Hornibrook's only played a game and a half in the system.
Yeah. The only other thing I can think of maybe is just whether, where the ball's spotted on the hash, field and boundary sides. If it's, with the way Hornibrook's left-handed, he's obviously not going to, you want to roll him to a certain side. He's probably not going to be able to exploit you on the boundary, or rather the field side. So maybe that sort of stuff. But ultimately, I don't think it's a lot of new stuff they'll have to worry about, or Clemson's going to be too apprehensive about what they're facing when it comes to.
And I don't think so. Florida State's approach here, I don't think it has anything about trying to do something different against like this offense is going to change in this situation because we got this guy in. I think it's more about kind of finding who plays better. I mean, I really feel like this game and maybe the next game are going to be kind of evaluation periods for these two quarterbacks. I think right now they're about dead even in the coaches' eyes, or at least I think that's how the coaches are going to present it. And I would think whoever plays better, if one of them separates from the other one over the next week or two, then it's not up to the coaches to make the decision. It's the players have made the decision based on their performance, and it's a lot easier to sell based on whoever it is.
Next question comes from P. Birdsong 12. If the Noles can keep it close in the first half, does Denard Robinsons' return from suspension make a huge impact on the defense in the second half to make a difference in the game? Or maybe the better question is, how hurt can the defense be by Janaris missing the first half?
Man, I think you and I both watched Dabo Swinney's press conference earlier this week at Clemson. If people haven't watched it, they might want to, because he had a lot of insight into Florida State's program. But when he started talking about the defense, the first player he mentioned was Denard Robinson, which kind of blew me away, because you would think he would start off with Marvin Wilson, maybe Hamza or whoever, but Dontavius, whatever. He started off with Denard Robinson, which I never would have predicted, certainly 3 or 4 weeks ago. But over the last couple of games, I think he played at a high level. So not having him for the first half is a big deal, especially because, you compound it with, you've already lost Josh Kando for the year. It's not the same position, but it kind of similar. That Jaden Lars-Woodby is out for the year as an outside linebacker on the other side. So you got Amari Gaynor starting on that side. So your edges now, you're on one side, you're going to have Josh Brown or Adonis Thomas are probably the two guys who are veterans, but have not played a ton of football. I think Josh Brown, I wrote a story about him last week. He played about 20-something snaps in the NC State game. That was by far the most he's ever played on defense. Before that, the most he played was like, 10 snaps, something like that. So you're going to have a guy that's pretty inexperienced. Adonis Thomas has played a good bit, but not with any great success, and not at that position necessarily. And then on the other side, you got Amari Gaynor, who I think played really well last time out. But that, this is his second time now, in terms of being in that starring role. And so we'll have to see how he handles it. So I think it's a big deal. I mean, I think Janaris can help them a lot, to his question, if he comes back in the second half. But I'd be real concerned about those edges in the first half, because you're so green there now from where you were just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I think maybe most fans might be underselling the impact of not having him for the first half, just because when he does make plays out there, he really does flash. You and I talked about it before practice earlier in the week. It's one of those things where he'll go missing. The whole thing about him has been consistency. It's just him being able to produce snap to snap. But there's some plays that he's made just, coming off the edge, whether it's setting the edge or whether it's getting to the quarterback or getting a TFL, that you're like, dang, man, this kid really has some promise, and maybe he's finally turned that corner. So, this is an opportunity for all these guys that are draft eligible to put something really good on their tape. You would imagine he'd be really hungry and chomping at the bit to get something on tape and to make a big play in a game of this magnitude. But he can play the second half. I mean, I think they will keep it close for the first half. So if I had a choice to have him in one or the other, I'd rather have him as a closer, bring him in the second half. Like Hornibrook, right? They're bringing the closer.
Exactly.
Bring the closer.
The crafty southpaw.
Yeah.
But the one thing I would watch out for, again, this is just who knows how it's going to play out. But one of the keys to that position, one of the reasons I think he's played better lately is he's been much better about setting the edge and staying home. There's a lot of risk at that position of overrunning plays, trying to do too much, trying to get after the quarterback and letting him outside of you. Not that Trevor Lawrence is a big scrambler, but you do want to continue playing with the right leverage. And if he sat out the first half and is just chomping at the bit to get out there, you could see a scenario where he comes out and maybe is too aggressive and he doesn't stay disciplined. So I think that's something that the coaches will have to watch out for.
Oh, don't be so cynical, Ira. Come on, man. You're the optimistic guy. Dr. Noel asks, if our team or coaches went in with a mentality of we have nothing to lose, what would that game plan look like? I like that.
I think it's what they have to do, right? I think that's what Willie is as a head coach. He's very different from Jimbo in that regard, that in a lot of regards, but one main regard I think in this topic is Jimbo kept games close. Especially if he felt like he couldn't win or had a slim chance of winning, he would shorten the game. He'd do a lot of things to be conservative. He wouldn't take chances. I think Willie's the exact opposite. I think Willie wants to go down swinging, and the downside is you may lose by 30 or 40 points. But I think he is going to go after him. So I would think some trick plays. I think it wouldn't surprise me at all if they ran 2 or 3 trick plays. I also think they are going to be aggressive on defense. I think they're going to be aggressive on offense. Go with tempo, try to go as fast as they can. And so again, what would that look like? If it works, you could really put a scare into Clemson and kind of get some positive national attention, which has been lacking. Most of the national attention has been really negative, even though they played better the last 2 weeks. But on the other side, conversely, if you go all out like that, you certainly could open yourself, to get bludgeoned.
Yeah, echoing what you said, I do think trick plays. I think you need to see Cam Akers maybe throw the ball once or twice, or run some option stuff with both him and Laborn, sorry. We saw them do that at IMG. We saw them run a 2-back set when the direct snap would go to Cam, and then Cam and Laborn go down, one side of the field, and if there's the option to pitch, you do it, and if not, you keep it. We saw it, I think, with DJ and Cam in the NC State game, maybe. So some of that stuff, I do think they got to blitz like crazy. What really is there to lose? The ball game that everyone thinks you're going to lose by 4 scores. They blitzed like crazy, I feel like, against Boise in that first half, and they were able to pressure and create some turnovers and a negative play. So I would like to see them bring enough pressure until Clemson proves that that's not going to be a good idea. I do think they're going to play quite fearless. I really do. I think Willie, him saying national champs 8 times in his Monday press conference, I really think he's drumming up this whole, how big of a matchup this is for them. Not saying that they win this game and they're going to, change the trajectory of Florida State athletics, but he realizes what they can do, the opportunity they have, and if they want to accomplish something big, if they want to hashtag do something, Ira, they're going to have to go for broke. So yeah, fake punts, maybe the punt Ruski makes a return, all that sort of stuff I think is on the table. So I think fans, you mentioned Jimbo and Willie's style. Yeah, you're going to this game thinking you're like a lamb going to the slaughter, like 17, but they're not going to go down meekly. They will do. I think they're going to take a lot of chances, so it should be fun to watch. I really think that. I believe.
Yeah,
that.
I'm with you, man.
I believe that.
And punt Ruski would be appropriate since they tried the direct snap at Virginia.
Yeah.
That didn't go that well, but maybe this will be the just paying homage to Florida State great plays of years ago.
It's good to have demons, right, Ira? It's good to have demons.
Something like that.
Next question comes from Drill Sergeant Porter saying, not really excited for Saturday against Clemson, but the game starts 0-0. I just want to see a lot of improvement from last year when we played them. Side note, am I the only one that thinks that Clemson is the biggest group of dorks, starting with Dabo himself and then the coaches having their kids on the team? Then to top it all off, their backup quarterback's name is 2 of the biggest dork names in history, Chase Bryce. No offense to any listeners. Regardless, go Noles.
No offense, though.
No offense. Now let me just totally insult your entire family. I like being on the top, Ira, because it's fun to be winning, but also because you can look down on people. That's what I really enjoy about being on the top. Florida State just is not on the top of the mountain. So like I feel really small when I start nitpicking stuff like that. If I was a coach, I'd love to have my kid on the team. Heck yeah, go run some routes. We'll try to get you a scrub touchdown here and there. I've learned to appreciate Dabo more. I really don't know a lot about the rest of the coaching staff, but Dabo's all right in my book. Sorry, I said it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally, of all the things I've gotten wrong in my career as a sports writer, a media person, that's Dabo, evaluating Dabo, probably at the top of the list. Yeah, I mean, I never expected this. I cannot believe, I mean, and again, it kind of goes back to the whole topic at the beginning about whether or not this is a game Florida State can win. It's really astounding to think of what Clemson's done these last 4 or 5 years. They're 63-4 in their last 67 games. And of their 4 losses, 3 of them are 5 points or less. So, I mean, again, it's not that they can't be beat. It's not that they won't be beat. That will end at some point, as we saw when Florida State has had their great runs. But at the end of the day, what he has done, what Dabo's done, what that program has done is really astounding. So you can make fun of them, but it just, it comes off as kind of hollow at this point because, they're going home with a pretty girl. I mean, that's, it is what it is. I remember there was a kid in the high school I thought was a complete dork, and he had an unbelievable girlfriend, and it just drove me nuts because I'm like, he's a dork. Well,
it's not fair.
Didn't matter.
Where's the justice?
That's what this guy sounds like.
Where's the justice? All right, next question comes from FSU JT. He says, wake up! It's Clemson week. The Noles have a huge opportunity on Saturday. Last week on the show, Aslan, you said, I got to see how Willie does in really crucial situations and in games that matter. Look, I know what we are right now and where we are as a program, but doesn't this game against Clemson matter? We're 2-1 in the ACC, still control our destiny for an ACC championship game berth if we beat Clemson. Yeah, it's a big if, but that's also where we were or where we are, and anything can happen any given Saturday. So this game does matter. Upsets happen, even though unlikely. I'm eager to see what Willie and Browse can do versus Clemson this weekend. I know after the Louisiana Monroe game, I was pretty down, but this team seems to be a different one since that game, so let's not completely discount them and realize we do still have an opportunity this year to get back to Charlotte. Check it out, Ira. He says, to make this all easy, I'll restate the question. Why don't you believe that this game and how the coaches prepare for it, how the team comes looking out, will tell us how Willie is going to do prepping for big games going forward? I do think this will tell us a lot. Because to the same point, I don't think he'll manage this game the way he would in 2021 with a 12-1 team playing in the conference championship game, down by 1 score, needing to win that to obviously make the playoff. I think there is a sort of looseness, house money, nothing to lose, that you're not going to coach a game like that the way you would when you're Nick Saban or Dabo and you have real legitimate shots of winning a national title sort of in your sights. So that's the stuff that I kind of want to see. Like those moments in the Louisiana Monroe game where you're calling the kind of a weird timeout on a punt situation. Like I don't think that sort of strategy is really going to be involved in the Clemson game. The Clemson game is going to be going by the seat of your pants, and if you're lucky enough to really stumble into some big plays and some turnovers, that's your formula for success. I don't really think it's going to be an out-coaching effort. What do you think, Ira?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they coach well, if he does a particularly good job, if they play really well, if they clearly exploit some things that maybe Clemson's vulnerable, some positions Clemson's vulnerable at, if the game is really close, if they play an inspired performance, if they don't get down, if things go poorly, I mean, those are things you could say, okay, well, all right, well, we're seeing some signs there. But yeah, I agree with what your original point is, that it's hard to evaluate Willie Taggart in this situation because it doesn't feel like he's got a full roster, full holster. He's got a gun with like 2 bullets in it, and Dabo's over there, with a 9mm, and so it's just hard to say exactly whether or not it's hard to evaluate the coaches when one program is at a super high level and one program is probably hoping to get to just kind of try to stay around the average right now for a consistent period of time. I mean, Florida State, again, that I'm with him. They're showing progress, but those last 2 wins were the first time they've won back-to-back ACC games in years. You're talking about a Clemson team that doesn't lose ever. So it's just they're in different places. that's why I get where you're coming from. But yeah, man, if it's an inspired effort, if they play really well, if they exploit some things, there are some things you could take away from it. It's just hard to know, I guess, to your point, what kind of coach he is in games that really matter from the standpoint of both teams are kind of at the same level.
Yeah. And then, not to talk out of both sides of my mouth, if he's the one that's calling the trick plays and then they do work out well. I mean, I think that's what impressed me so much about the Miami game was that I didn't have a lot of optimism going into the Miami game last year. They came out and played so well for 3 quarters. That trick play was called at the absolute perfect time. It was well designed. It was almost perfectly executed. And that still remains to me almost like the gold standard Willie Taggart game. Just because, backs against the wall, not a lot of optimism, and you go and they played really, really well in that game. So that, to me, remains one of the things that I kind of sort of clinged on to. I don't know what I could really cling on from this Clemson contest, but who knows, man? If they do keep it close enough and he does call a sneaky play that turns the tide, that kind of shows you that he does have a good feel for knowing when to take chances. So we can only
what's weird about this game, and I was thinking about it a couple of questions ago when the person asked about, I guess just the approach of the possibility of knocking Clemson off. In one area, I can make a case that instead of putting everything into this game, I guess you made a comment that seems like Willie's kind of building this up as this huge game for the program. You can make a case that he'd be better off really focusing on Wake Forest and Miami and BC, because at the end of the day, those games are going to be the ones that really determine whether or not this team goes to a bowl game. I mean, you could play your best game, and there's still a good chance you're going to lose against Clemson. But in those other games, if you play great against Wake Forest, if you play great against Miami, if you play great against BC and Syracuse, now you're going to a bowl game. And for the long-term benefit of the program, now none of those is going to make the same splash. They're not going to talk about you on game day. They're not going to talk about you on national sports talk shows if you beat Wake the week after. But they will, obviously they would if you beat Clemson. So it's a weird thing. Like, you get more splash if you beat or hang with Clemson. But in reality, I think it's more important, which you don't – the worst case scenario is you give everything you've got in this Clemson game and you come up short, and then you have a residual hangover that hurts you the next week against Wake Forest, because those are the games that you really have to have. Just like, it's kind of a weird situation.
Let me interject real quick, Ira, because Corey and I have been kind of going back and forth on this. I just think the way they played, the way they got themselves off the mat against Louisiana Monroe and were able to play so well against Virginia and then lose in a heartbreaking fashion like that, but then come back and, play the way they did against Louisville, get out to another big lead, lose it, but make the plays that count, and then pretty much kind of cruise against NC State, which not a really good team. I don't see the potential for a hangover unless Willie has talked this game up into this really sort of big Super Bowl, we can win, everything is still in our hands, we can shock the world and change the narrative of everything, and they go and they lose by 4 or 5 touchdowns. Then I could see maybe that sort of hangover. But if he's managing it just as let's just go out there and have fun, let's make plays, let's play confident, let's just take some chances and let's see what happens, and they lose by 21 or 24, I don't think a hangover is on the horizon. I mean, are there lots of sort of ways that this game could play out that you would think this team would come out next week against Wake Forest and be flat or lose their fighting spirit?
No, and I'm with you. And I heard you guys discuss it on the show, and I agree with you. Not Corey.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Who would ever agree with
Yeah.
Corey? But no, I agree with you. I don't think that they're going to have a hangover either. I think what we saw against Virginia was the sign you wanted to see, and I think that's kind of gives you an idea of what you're going to see if they have disappointment in the future. So yeah, I wouldn't expect them to just kind of fall flat against Wake Forest. I'm talking about more, I guess, physically. If this is a war and you just go and you got guys that are banged up early in the week and you kind of come out, you don't have everything you'd want for that Wake Forest game. It's funny when the schedules came out, everybody was excited about getting the bye week before Clemson, the bye week before Florida, because you felt like, okay, those are well, really those are their 2 least winnable games. You can make a case they'd be better off with bye weeks before a Wake Forest or bye week before Syracuse or Miami. But it is what it is. Look, I'm not saying Florida State's going to not have a chance against Wake Forest. It's a weird situation where there's more to gain by beating Clemson, but there's more to lose if you lose to Wake Forest or those teams after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, Ira. Maxwell Gibbs says, wake up! What is more likely on Saturday? Clemson boat races us like last season, or it's a close ball game in the fourth quarter? He's got a whole bunch of questions, so we don't have to spend too much time ruminating over these. I think it's much more likely it's a close ball game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I agree. The only way it's a blowout is if the defense just caves like they did last year in the second half, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Any chance we see Cole Minshew starting at some point this season? I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really curious what the whole game plan is there with Cole because, his first year when he redshirted was due to injury. So he could apply for a 6th year. If he misses this whole year because of his neck injury, he could apply for a 6th year and maybe come back next season. Now, I don't know if he wants to do that or not. Because right now, I mean, he's still got to get in shape. He's just coming back to practice. I mean, the rest of the team gets a full month of camp before they start playing in games. He hasn't done anything really in months. So I have a hard time. To me, the best case scenario for him to play would be like in late October, November, best case scenario. So you're going to get 4 or 5 games out of him. To me, if I was Cole Minshew and I love playing football and I really wanted a good senior year, I'd consider not playing and try to come back and get a 6 year of eligibility. There's no guarantee they have to go through the process, but I think if he had a verified injury as a freshman, and he obviously has a verified injury now, he would get that 6 year. But sometimes guys are just, especially when they've been injury plagued, they just want to move on. So I really think it depends on. It's a long way of saying I think it depends on what he wants. If he wants to play this year, whether it's just 3 or 4 games, then yeah, I think there's a good chance he would play. Whether he'd start, it probably comes into how much shape he can get into, but he can definitely contribute.
Yeah, I think actually I changed my mind, Ira. I think you've persuaded me. You were right. To him to start at some point this season, who knows? And I do wonder if this whole new 4-game redshirt thing, I wonder if that does affect whether or not he can still get that sort of 6th year of eligibility. Brave new world we're undergoing with all these new rule changes. And his last question Maxwell Gibbs has for us is, do you expect a lot of Wildcat packages with Cam and DJ on Saturday? Both do have the capability to toss bombs down the field after all. That's a good suggestion. Yeah, I think DJ, maybe not so much wild cam, but maybe like a reverse throw, double throw kind of thing. Maybe the Miami play makes a return with DJ throwing it down the field. I'll set the over-under on 1.5, and I'll take the over.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think 2 or 3 trick plays. I guess the question is, are you more likely to use trick plays if things are going well or if things are not going well and you need a spark? Could you see them if they got going a little bit, maybe kind of going for the kill, not kill, but, really trying to kind of press their luck, or do you think it would be more out of a desperation?
That's a good question. Because I think about, like, what if they go up 7-0, get a turnover like near midfield? Like, do you call the trick play to try to go up 14-0? I mean, 14-0 is like a kill shot against most teams, but, against Clemson in the first half, it wouldn't be. But yeah, I mean, I think any opportunity they have to deploy something like that, that's going to get, I mean, they can't be picky on when they're going to score points, right? They got to score when they can. So, yeah, I think we'll see even when they're successful. I don't think it'll be like a last ditch. Like, we're going to try to play like men with honor, and if we fail in battle, then we'll deploy these gimmick plays. I think it's going to be, we need to deploy these gimmick plays so that we can have a ball game this Saturday, gentlemen. So,
I just realized that a possibly good omen earlier this week, Aslan.
Go on.
Was in the car with my daughter, driving her home from school the other day, and Eye of the Tiger came on.
Okay.
And it dawned on me that she didn't really know the Rocky story. So I was sitting, as we're driving home, I was telling her the plots. So Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4.
Nice.
And it was Rocky 2. Because I was telling her Rocky 1, I was telling her the story, and I was like, and she's like, oh, so he wins? I'm like, no, he doesn't win. But he does come back and win in the second one. And that's the song. So maybe you feel like something there, maybe a little Eye of the Tiger, a little possible, no, maybe no.
I don't want to deflate the good vibes here, Ira, but Eye of the Tiger is actually Rocky 3.
What?
Yeah, because it's Clubber Lang. It's Clubber Lang training in the opening montage, and then Rocky's living large and signing autographs and taking photos and hanging out the Muppets, and then we see Clubber Lang grinding away because he's got the Eye of the Tiger.
What?
Yeah. Listen.
What's the song for? Is 2 just the same song?
Yeah,
Is 1?
Gonna Fly and all that sort of stuff.
Really?
Yeah. Listen, you know about everything in this world more than I do, but Rocky is the one thing that, like, I will. That's my phone a friend. That's my phone a friend. If you need any Rocky stuff, come to me.
I think part of the problem is I watched them when I was a kid, but I really haven't watched them in the last 30 years. And I was also telling her that in the first one, when he drinks the raw eggs, 7-year-old Ira was drinking raw eggs.
We all tried it, and then like what? Yeah, didn't work out well. Did not work out well. Maxwell Gibbs also parting tells us, FYI, for anyone in the greater New York City area this weekend, Charlie Ward will be making an appearance during the game at the watch party being held at the Three Monkeys in Midtown. So that's pretty cool. Check that out.
Yes. Yeah, I saw Charlie post about that on Facebook. He's obviously a lot of Knicks fans up there, and then you know, a lot of Noles. They have a good. New York City has a nice FSU club there.
We do. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, very well. Next question comes from Seminole Life. Says, "Wake up! Simple question, fellas. Your favorite play and or game between FSU and Clemson." Seminole Life says, personally, mine is Golden Toe Hopkins' 55-yard game-winning field goal. I was in Doak that night in grad school, and it was electric. Oh yeah, regular grilled chicken sandwich and fries is surprisingly good at Zaxby's. I told everybody, Ira, I said that you and I were stopping for, you were doing your keto or whatever diet you're doing, and you're like, I need grilled chicken breasts. I'm like, Zaxby's has got you hooked up, and you became a believer. Welcome to the family.
Yeah, he's not lying.
Yeah.
I was a little skeptical going to Zaxby's and still trying to keep calories in order as you're trying to lose weight.
Right.
And but no, the grilled chicken sandwich was legit. What was the first part of this question?
Favorite play and or game between FSU and Clemson. I did ask Corey before his heart was ripped out of his torso, thrown on the ground, stepped on, trampled on, put in a box and shipped across the world and then thrown into the bottom of the ocean. He did say, Punt Ruski, obviously. Why would you ask me anything else? So, yeah, that's Corey's favorite memory. My favorite memory, like, I don't want to go with the cheapie. I don't want to do, like, the 2013 layup. I was living in Mississippi in Jackson at the time, and, like, number 10 LSU was playing at Ole Miss, and I'm like, I'm not going to that game. There's going to be no upset. I need to be here. I need to watch FSU to see if they can finally turn this thing around. And that night, Ole Miss upset LSU, and I'm like, darn it. But I didn't care because FSU boat raced Clemson. I'll go ahead and say 2002 Thursday night game in Doak. Greg Jones, I think it was the end of the first half where he just bustled through.
Like the whole team.
Yeah, went through. That's my favorite. That's my favorite game memory Clemson-wise.
It's a pretty good one. Same thing, 2013. It's kind of hard to beat that one for me, certainly, since I've been covering Florida State. I also thought a cool one was, when they beat them in Doak, when Dabo kept throwing the ball, when they had the running back, the running back from Jacksonville was just running.
Yeah, Jamie Harper.
Harper's just running all over Florida State. Dabo was like, no, let's just start throwing the ball. And Florida State stuck back in there.
Yeah. All right, we go. We got some optimism. Comes from none other than Tony Cleveland, a.k.a. Cleve Dog, FSU 22. Wake up. It's Clemson week. I believe, my brothers. Death Valley has more memories of Seminoles going in there and stomping that ass than Ric Flair and the Horsemen stomping on Hulk Hogan. What formula do you see that our Seminoles can march in there and defeat this pompous Clemson team with? He also makes a mention that, were you guys talking about the Black Crows on Seminole headlines, Ira?
Yeah, we were. Somehow we got on topic. Corey started talking about that book, the new book that just came out where they their drummer just rips Chris Robinson and his brother.
Yeah, he agrees with Corey that Chris Robinson's a jackwagon. So there is that. He also says he's going to probably turn into a chicken from eating so much Zaxby's. He wants to be a manager for Corey and I because he thinks we're a funny duo. We're really not. We're just two stupid dudes talking about football, and we make Ira ashamed that we smudge the great name of Warchant on a daily basis, but we try. The formula, man, again, I mean, we've said it. I think defensively, blitz a whole bunch. Offensively, mix in a couple trick plays. They're going to have, I guess they're going to have to throw the ball pretty quick because I don't think they're going to have a lot of time. But when you do take your shots, make them count, and then just win first down, I guess, which is one of those sort of lazy cliche things, but especially for this offense, right, Ira? They have to win first down to have the opportunity to go fast, to have the opportunity to catch Clemson off guard, because that's the easiest way to score against a team that kind of is a little bit more skilled and talented than you are.
Yeah, I mean, I think we agree definitely on the defensive side. On the offensive side, if Cam can get off a little bit, Clemson's defense is been really good, way better than anybody expected with all of what they lost. But they've given up some rushing yards. They've given up some yards on the ground. Cam Akers has played at such a high level. If, as you said, if you can get some positive yards on first down, maybe throw a quick pass, get in some second and short situations, get the running game going, I think it would be huge. And then now, especially because their defensive front is a little bit inexperienced, you get some progress going with the running game, then maybe they got to start bringing their back seven up. They got to start cheating up, rolling their safeties down. Now maybe you can hit them with some big shots to Tamari and Terry and those guys. So to me, that's the scenario. Is Cam, he's obviously the best player on the team. If he gets off a little bit early, then maybe that creates some opportunities where in the passing game, because Clemson starts really having to focus on Cam Akers.
I am no-blooded. Says, wake the F up, guys. He's really in all caps. I probably should have said it with a little more gusto. He does say that a lot of people have said Florida State has not been good since 2016. But I remember 2016, and I remember that we had this little scat back named Dalvin Cook who won a bunch of games for us and almost single-handedly beat Clemson. What do you think our record would have been had it not been for the greatness of Dalvin Cook? I wish you were watching the video, folks. Just Ira's sort of head shake is just like, oh boy, like where do I begin?
Yeah. He masked a lot of problems. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, they don't beat Miami that year, I don't think. Like every Miami game that Dalvin Cook was here, they don't beat Miami without him. I think it's probably the easiest way to say it. But they did have him. I mean, they did have him. You got to get kind of credit for that. That's kind of how it works.
Yeah. Exactly. It's hard to imagine what the offense would look like with Sean McGuire or Everett Golson or even DeAndre is a redshirt freshman without Dalvin Cook. But like you said, they did have him. But yeah, man, he was awesome. And really, you knew he was awesome at the time, but I don't think you really knew quite how awesome until he left.
Yeah. All right. Next question comes from, he calls me Asian. We're going to pretend that it was the spell check that got the best of him. You know how many times people spell my name Asian, Ira? It's ridiculous. It's JRULKM_A_AOL.com. Been around since March 2015, Ira. It's only his second message. So he says he's been a member of Warchant.com for about a year, but supporting the Noles forever. You've been a member for like 4 years, man. Don't sell yourself short. His question is that it seems like Willie has had a staff of good character coaches that were very likable and at the same time were sort of a soft field presence for the team, especially on defense. Enter Jim Leavitt, who I seem to remember from his days at USF to be a hard-driving son of a gun kind of coach, and seems like the defense suddenly has an edge. Do you think there needs to be a bad guy, some yin, to Willie's yang to make this system work? Or yin, rather, sorry. Don't know how his staff had been constructed in the past, but this change is noticeable. What are your thoughts?
First of all, I would say Odell Higgins is a hard ass. So it's not like they didn't have anybody on that staff that's that way. It's a fair enough point. I mean, I think Raymond Woody's pretty much down the middle. I think he's a guy that gets excited, but he also can be kind of calm. Harlan Barnett, I'm sure there are moments where he's a big screamer, and he obviously was a ferocious football player as a player. But no, in general, you don't see him carry himself like a maniacal, defensive-minded coach. So there's possibly something to that. I think that it is interesting that everything, all the players and Willie Taggart, everybody you talk to about what Jim Leavitt brings to the program, the first thing they all mention is, energy and kind of that passion. And you hate to hear that where was that before? But, he obviously has it, and I think his point might be on the money that maybe that was something they kind of lacked, or at least conveying it to the players the right way.
I think you need to, I think there needs to be a yin and a yang. Not everybody's going to be Mickey Andrews, but you need to be closer to Mickey Andrews than you need to be more of a calm. I just think that way. I don't know. I'm kind of backwards, I guess, in the way that I still look at the game of football. I mean, I still think it's a really tough physical game played by really tough physical guys, and you need leaders beyond just your players that are pretty tough-minded and are going to be really stern and are going to use colorful language and have to get their point across in other manners than simply just instructing you over and over. I mean, Venables is a pretty high-wired guy, and but then again, so is Dabo. So they kind of, maybe they're yang and yang. But I mean, there is something to be said about probably the energy that Jim Leavitt brought to that building being one of the main reasons the defense has looked better. And there's only so much you can say about, hey, fit this better, roll coverage over this way. A lot of it has to be sort of desire and want to and all that sort of stuff. And we've seen that, right, Ira? I mean, the defense is more aggressive and is less sort of passive, it feels like, right?
It definitely does. I mean, both in stopping the run and then also playing the pass. I mean, they're attacking the ball. They're going to make plays instead of sitting back and waiting to make the tackle. And then certainly in the run defense, it has been. So yeah, I think there's no doubt he's had a big impact. It's hard to quantify it because he's not officially a coach. But if he does stay into next year and he does take more of a leadership role, whether that's defensive coordinator or co-defensive coordinator or whatever it is, that's got to give you, more excitement about the future of this defense, especially when you know you're going to be losing a couple of these key guys.
You said this last week. Sorry to get us detoured here. You said this last week on Showtime. But, my whole belief in talking to Corey, I think I convinced Corey with all my craziness, was that there's no way that Jim Leavitt was going to come to Florida State just for 8 games to help out his old buddy Willie Taggart. Like, I felt like there had to be some sort of unspoken agreement, spoken agreement, handshake agreement that, fix this and then it's all yours moving forward, or something along the lines of that. But you don't necessarily think that it's a slam dunk that Jim Leavitt's the defensive coordinator for Florida State in 2020.
I mean, I think it's possible that is the case, that maybe there was some sort of assurances given to him. But even if there was, it's not like there's any way to hold him. There's no way to make that binding. That's my point. I mean, Willie may have told him, yeah, man, if you come in right now as an analyst and you help us in these next 8 games and it goes really well, we'll either cut Harlan loose or we'll reassign Harlan and you'll be the defensive coordinator. That may be there. That may be the case. But that doesn't mean that Jim Leavitt has to stay. Like, they didn't sign him to a blood oath. He could still, at the end of the season, if he gets an opportunity to go be a head coach somewhere or be a defensive coordinator in a better situation with a coach that's got more job security, or after the 7 or 8 weeks, he may realize, well, I don't love these kids, or I don't fit here, or whatever it is. So, yeah, I think that my guess is it's on the table. If he wants to be here and it goes well over these next 7, 8 games, then, yeah, I think that's going to be there for him to take. My point is, I don't know that it's a slam dunk it's going to happen, because he might have something else, come up. I mean, he's turned Willie down a couple times in the past. So what would be to stop him from doing it again?
Well, my sort of thing was like, I'm sure he had other options or other opportunities, but he did choose Florida State, and he just the timing of it just seems so weird. Like, you'd think they obviously talked about this before. I think even Willie told us that maybe in July they discussed it, and maybe it wasn't the right timing. But I mean, I think you mentioned a lot of this is sort of like visibility as a coach. Back when I was in television, they said like the worst thing to do in TV is to not have a TV job. Like, you should always have a job to get your next job. So maybe that's a little bit of perhaps Leavitt's motivation, and maybe not so much a loyalty to Willie, but rather loyalty just to staying active and staying out in front of things.
Oh, I definitely think that's the case. I don't think he wanted to take this year off completely. And I think Florida State made the most sense for him. It was, again, I mean, Jim Leavitt's like a lot of coaches, like Kendall Briles. We all kind of took note when he mentioned all the criteria that went into him deciding to take the Florida State job. It wasn't just, I like Willie Taggart, we want to run the same system. He looked at the talent on the roster. He looked at Cam Akers. He looked at the schedule. He looked at, the potential for improvement based on what they had done last season. That all kind of goes into just like any of us when we're looking at job opportunities. I think Jim Leavitt's the same way. I think Florida State's an attractive job. It probably got even more attractive when he saw how they played the first 2 weeks. Because, again, it's like, and I've taken some jobs as an editor at a couple of newspapers. When I went in and looked at the newspaper, when you apply for a job as an editor, they'll send you newspapers and say, what do you think about what we're doing now? And I would look at them and go, oh, man, I could come in there and look like a genius. Because if I just do this, this, and this, it's going to be so much better than what they were doing. So I think Florida State was really attractive to Jim Leavitt. My only point is, if Nick Saban comes calling, or whoever comes calling next summer, in January, I don't know that you can say 100% without doubt that Jim Leavitt's going to be Florida State's defensive coordinator.
Fair enough. Here's what's not fair. Noel Holla, Aslan, you totally avoided my question last week, so I will not ask one this week. Thanks. I feel the two-headed quarterback. I feel the two-headed quarterback monster may give us a slight advantage, and would not mind seeing Jordan Travis with his mobility get slipped in on a couple plays. What are your thoughts? I'll pass on that. I don't think it'd be a good idea to throw him out there in that situation and that crowd with that offensive line against that defense. I'm all about trickery. Jordan can hang out. Just stay safe. Stay safe.
I was gonna say you said nothing to lose. I'm with you. It is odd how, and again, I'm not trying to put down Jordan Travis, but it was almost like very dismissive whenever the topic came up of any other candidates in this battle besides Hornibrook and James Black, and going back to preseason camp. So I think it's a big gap, and I wouldn't expect, if you're going to go to an athlete, you just go to Cam Akers or DJ Matthews, right?
Definitely. Bimini Bound says, take the hill. Talking about Snuggy Hill next week. Noles North asks, Showtime's turn to answer what does matter this week. So Noles North, Ira, is always asking us what does matter because, I'm a nihilist. Corey's a cynic. Nothing matters. He asks, what does matter, Ira? The two-headed quarterback, Trevor Lawrence struggling, moving on to Snuggy Hill. What does matter?
Yeah, I think in the immediate, to me, it's affecting Trevor Lawrence. I really think that's going to be the key to Florida State's chances. We know the alternative. We know what would happen if Florida State just kind of sat back and let him do what he wants to do. We know what that would look like. He's going to carve them up. They're not good enough, I don't think, in the back end to make plays when Trevor Lawrence has time. So affecting him is the biggest thing. But, in the big picture, I still say, taking that hill, Winston-Salem, and, if they can knock off the Demon Deacons, to me, that game, if you subscribe to the notion that Florida State doesn't have a great chance of winning this weekend, which I think most of us do, the Wake Forest game is a bigger deal.
NYC Noel, wake up, fellas. Great show, Aslan. Even better to get Ira to fill in.
Woo.
Yeah. Sorry, Corey. What question is left to be asked that hasn't already been answered? So here I try. If Clemson fumbles one time, not necessarily for loss, on every offensive possession, how much more confident are you that the Noles win?
Every possession.
Oh, man. Yeah, that would help.
It would help. It doesn't guarantee a win.
Yeah.
If they don't lose them, because you feel like I feel like the great thing about Jameis in that offense in 2013 and 14 was it didn't matter if you were in second and 18 or second and 23 or third and 24. You just always felt like, he can convert that. Yeah. There's no doubt. I would imagine Clemson fans feel the same way about Trevor Lawrence. So, I don't. Just being in negative plays, I don't think gives Florida State that much better of a chance. Now, if they lose 6 fumbles or 7 fumbles, now we could be onto something.
Now we're talking. Yeah, I will say, I think fumbles can be top 5 most deflating play in all of sports. When you need a turnover and you create a fumble and the ball's on the ground and you don't get it, it's just it's the worst feeling ever. So it could even have a bad effect. If they keep causing all these fumbles but they never fall on it, they'll be like, what do we have to do? So it could be a negative thing. NYC Noel ends with, Aslan, any truth to the rumor that I started? There will be soon a Ask Coach O segment on Wake Up Warchant. Listeners can ask any life question they have, and Coach O answers. Podcast gold, if you ask me. And by Coach O, Ira, they don't mean Coach Irlane Oderain, the strength coach for Florida State, whose name I just butchered, but much respect to him. He's a big dude. But rather, Coach Ed Ogeron, LSU, big game, Baton Rouge, the Gators. I need a script.
You need a script. You got the voice down.
Yeah. I got the voice down. I can't. But maybe we'll do some Ask Coach O life advice or things like that. So,
man, I tried to get your predecessor, Ryan. He does a great Deckerhoff.
Okay.
And
fire the cannons.
So I would get him doing Deckerhoff, and I would give him different scenarios, maybe a Deckerhoff in the bar after 6 or 7 hours, different scenarios. And I was trying to get him to do them, and I wanted to do it as a video feature on the site. Like, here's my best idea, and Ryan wouldn't do it. He was a chicken. And it's easy for me to say. I wasn't the one doing the voice. But I wanted him, have it be the lost tapes from the lost decade. So, what Deckerhoff was saying during breaks about, Jeff Alden's offense and about Chris Ricks or about different players during the breaks. We found those tapes.
Yeah.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
All right, it was. Yeah, Ryan. Yeah, if you guys know Ryan Kelly out there still, tell Ryan to do it, man. Do it for the brand.
He was afraid Deckerhoff would squash his career.
Yeah.
So.
Here we go. Yeah, that's kind of as a legend. You can't really, can't aim at him. Big Steve 022. What's up, fellas? It's Clemson week. I think the 2-quarterback system could work against an aggressive defense like Clemson if we can hold the block a little bit against various blitz packages. I think Hornibrook could be effective in the short intermediate throws, and if they back off, Jay Black can come in and be aggressive on deeper routes. Of course, this is all dependent on holding the block, which is tough, I know. What are your thoughts? It doesn't work that way, unfortunately, I don't think. They can't be like, all right, they got 8 in the box, bring in James to go over the top.
Now, is he saying haven't been there at the same time?
No, because I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, there you go. They could work it that way. There you go.
That was kind of somebody threw that on headlines.
All right.
The idea of having them both in there at the same time. So, yeah, man, I don't know. I think that might be seen as a little desperate, but could you imagine if they did that?
That'd be awesome. As far as the defense, if we can stay consistent on stopping the run and limit Trevor Lawrence and those back shoulder throws, I think we have a chance. I've only went in one game ever as a fan knowing we had no chance, and we all know what game that was. Hashtag Tebow hater. Lastly, continue to play for one another cannot be overstated, though there is always that one superstar. I believe that all top teams live by that philosophy, and it shows on the field. Let's get it, Noles. Yeah, man, they got to do that sort of stuff. Captain D _63 as we wind things down here on Wake Up Warchant, as well as Showtime with our show fell. Wake up, gentlemen. Dabo said in his press conference that Florida State has out-recruited Clemson the last 10 years, and yet many of those 10 years we have had underachieved. I think he's talking about Clemson, maybe, or maybe he's talking about us. I do know he said that Florida State is the most talented team they've played so far this year, so take that, Jimbo Fisher. Would you say that this is from lack of coaching? Would you say some falls on the administration? Dabo said FSU has just as much talent as Clemson does and said we should be 5-0. I know most of this is coach speak, but I feel the last coaching staff let players down by not getting the most out of them as they should. So I guess what I'm asking, does that fall on the AD or the president in getting the right staff and leading your football program like Clemson or Bama? Love the program. I listen every day. Go Noles. Beat Clemson 34-31.
I don't think we're quoting him exactly correctly. He didn't say that they have as much talent as Clemson. He said that there have been the recruiting rankings have had them listed as having better classes than Clemson. And also he said, as you said, that Florida State's the most talented team they played. So I don't think he said that they have as much talent. But yeah, to the big question, I think about this a lot. I mean, I feel like, especially as I look at Marvin Wilson, Cam Akers, Stanford Samuels, the guys who are in their 3rd or 4th year in the program. Look, man, Florida State kind of failed them. They came to Florida State when Florida State was on top of the world, top of the mountain in college football. A lot of those guys were being recruited in 2016, 2015. Florida State's coming off of their high. They're still winning 10 games. You feel like Jimbo Fisher's he was one of the 4 coaches in college football who'd won a national championship, active coaches. You feel like you're going to a program where you're going to have success at a super high level. You get here in 2017, he checks out. The years of disappointment. Willie Taggart comes in. The years of disaster. Now you're trying to rebuild it. Those guys may not even ever taste the success. Even if they get this on the right footing, their best case scenario, some of those guys is going to be looking back and saying, hey, we righted the ship. We helped turn it around. We laid the foundation. But their college careers kind of stunk, especially compared to what they came into expecting. So, yeah, no, it's all about the development part. I mean, and the program and what happened to the program. As far as who's to blame, I don't know that you point the finger at any one person. Nobody could have predicted that Jimbo was going to go off the rails the way he did. And what could you have done about it if you could? Even if you realized at the time, like, okay, this guy's not in it right now. What are you going to fire Jimbo Fisher when he's won 10 games every year and 3 years from a national title? So you couldn't do anything there. You went out and got the coach you felt like was the right coach in the situation. It went terribly, but you can't fire him after 1 year. So I don't know that there's anybody in the administration you can say, okay, well, they screwed it up. But, if it plays out this way and it goes poorly over the next year or 2 or 3 years, then they have to make a change. Then you can look back after the fact and say, okay, they botched that hire. But as far as what happened, I think it's just kind of a bad situation. I don't know if anybody's to blame for what happened after those guys got here.
I just think that, as much as I kind of like Jimbo's style to a certain degree, it's not sustainable. It almost makes you appreciate Nick Saban that much more because, like, Nick Saban is that animated, that maniacal, that overly sort of paranoid, crazy, detail-oriented. Like, Nick could do it. Jimbo did it, but he can't sustain it, obviously. Like, the Dabo model, maybe to a certain degree, the Willie model of not being this sort of like maniacal taskmaster obsessed over every single minutia, that allows you to build a program. Like, Nick Saban's awesome. He's obviously done it. He's continued to do it, but like you're not going to find guys like that. You have to find guys like Dabo that are maybe a little bit more practical and then give them the financial support to bring in really good assistant coaches and then just figure out a way to create a culture that makes kids give up millions of dollars to go to the NFL to play another season to win you a national title. Piece of cake, right? Piece of cake. 3 more questions we got here, Ira. I promise we're almost over. Garnet and Gomez, in terms of team mindset, we've kind of talked about this, but he asked it, so it's fair. Do you think it would impact this team more to go to Clemson and battle and maybe lose by a touchdown in a close game where we played them hard, or a 14 to 21 point win again? Oh, he threw a twist on it. Or a 14 or 21 point win against Wake. So he thinks, Garnet and Gomez, I think the Clemson game dictates the rest of the season. This is arguably the most positivity we have had since the Virginia Tech game last year. And if we could go and play Clemson close, I feel like our team would be able to take those next steps against Wake, Syracuse, and then Miami. I'd take the win, though. You got to take the win against Wake, right? Like, you get to take the win.
Yeah, I mean, if it has to be an either or, yeah, I mean, I think you want that win against Clemson. I also don't think, I'm with you, back to what you said earlier, I don't think Florida State's going to fold if they don't play well this weekend. And I do think they're going to play well. I don't think they're going to get embarrassed. And now, if they went out and just got blown off the map, then maybe that would rock them to some degree. But I think they're mature enough and they know where they came from that if they go out there and play pretty well with Clemson toe-to-toe, it's maybe a 2-score game, 10-point game, something like that in the second half, going to the fourth quarter. Again, you don't want moral victories, but I think you could feel like, okay, we showed we can play with those guys, and then you could take care of business going forward. So, yeah, I don't see them going off the rails, but, yeah, the Wake game is you can make the case the Wake game is the biggest. The Wake and Miami games, to me, are the biggest games of the year.
We're going to read his question because he asked it and he's a subscriber. Well, we've already answered it pretty much. TKO56 says, wake up, you guys are great. Thank you. He means you, Ira, not Corey. Listens every day. Corey, okay. He asked, what does Florida State have to do to pull the upset off this week? We've talked about that a few times. And then lastly, we go on a high note. Flash FSU. Did Corey drink as many beers as the Cardinals scored runs?
I texted him in the middle of, well, not in the middle of that first inning. So, I think it was 9-0 in the top of the first inning. And I texted him and I was like, man, and, basically I'm sorry. And, because he went to the game, he went with his buddies. He was all excited about this game. First chance for the Braves to close out a series, win a series since 2001, I think.
Something like that.
And they're down 9-0 in the first. And he actually said, he was in a good spirits. He said, at least I'm seeing history. And, he was taking it in stride. So we'll see. I mean, look, I think we all know Corey. We all know how he feels about Atlanta sports. He was not expecting them to win this series. And if they did, he certainly was not expecting them to beat the Dodgers. So if that's who they played next. So it wasn't like he was ordering pennants to put up on his wall. So I think he's going to be okay.
He would be drinking 14 beers. The final, Ira, was 13-1 St. Louis. So hopefully Corey did not have 14 beers. He's a moderate. Well, he's a guy who enjoys things in moderation. So.
And if they're Mick Ultras, he still might pass a breathalyzer on the way home. Not that he would really drink that much and drive, but you get my point.
He'll use an Uber. All right, Ira, we're done, man. Thanks so much for tagging in here on Wake Up Warchant and also allowing me to grace the presence of Showtime with Ira Schoffel. Folks, we've got the Warchant report coming up on Warchant tomorrow, where Corey, Gene, and Jeff break things down about Florida State, where they're at. They even offer some theories on how we got to this point where Clemson's kind of lapped the field. We're going to go out and talk to Willie on Thursday morning as well, Ira. There's really nothing left to ask, is there? We just got to show up and do our job, right?
I think that's about it. Yeah, Thursday mornings just to make sure that Willie's still here, the team hasn't left the building, and we're just tying up a couple loose ends. That's about it. Injury-wise, is Juwan Williams okay? Is there a good chance he might play or contribute? And that's about it. There's not a whole lot else to ask.
All right. With that said, we'll see you on the flip side, which is warchant.com. If you're not a member, use the promo code WARCHANT30. It gets you 30 free days of access to the ultimate Seminole sports source. For Ira, I'm Aslan. Thanks so much for watching.